Chapter 28 Additional Techniques for Stool Examination. The outline of this chapter includes three techniques: culture of lava stages, egg studying, quantitation of reducing substances, or what's called clean test. The chapter aims to get to know several non-routinely used diagnostic techniques, learn techniques for culture nematode larva stages and eggs, estimate worm burden, know the idea and usefulness of clean test. In previous chapters, we discussed details about routinely used diagnostic techniques like wet smears, concentration methods, and permanent stained smears. But in this chapter, we will discuss very simple diagnostic methods. Even these methods are not routinely used in the diagnostic labs. Most of these techniques are used for confirmatory purposes of certain parasites or for identification of parasitic species. Culture of larval stage nematodes. Culture of larval stage nematodes. This method is used to concentrate the larvae in a stool specimen. For example, Strongyloides stercoralis larvae may be recovered in this method. When there is little chance to detect these larvae in specimen, concentration is a good choice. It is possible to morphologically distinguish between Strongyloides and hookworm larvae. On the other hand, this technique gives more time and chance for eggs to hatch or allow larvae to develop into other stages to be identified easily. So identification on larval stages become more reasonable for this technique. When diagnosis is based on characteristics of eggs become difficult, like in these figures that shows uh, Trichostrongylis species eggs and hookworm eggs. Larval morphology become a good choice. Hunter-Murray filter paper step culture technique is used to detect light infections with hookworms, Strongyloides, Trichostrongylos. This technique requires filter paper and fresh sample. The fresh sample is put on the filter paper and then the filter paper is immersed into a test tube with water inside to provide moisture to the sample. Please look at this figure for this technique. You can use also a petri dish with a filter paper, and this is the fecal material, and all this system should be immersed with little water to provide moisture for the fecal sample. This technique has some limitations. Among these, it allows both parasitic and free-living forms to develop, and a fresh sample is needed as well. Charcoal culture. This technique is used to culture larvae in a conditions that mimics conditions in nature. And this technique provides efficient way to harvest large number of infective stages in experimental conditions. The Berman technique is allow the larvae to migrate from fresh specimen on the top here uh, and then move to a mesh Uh, it moves to the mesh from layers of gauze and then settle down in the water and afterwards collected and examined in wet smears. This technique is also valid to examine larval uh, stages in soil specimens as well. This technique have been discovered by Gustav Bauerman. Agar plate culture for Strongyloides styrocoralis. This technique uses stool specimens which are simply added to agar plate with a bacteria. After 2 days of incubation on room temperature, uh, and when larvae curls over the agar, they carry bacteria and creating like this visible tags like this. Plates are examined then under the microscope or washed with 10% formalin for larval identification. So this is the technique once again. Um, estimation of worm burdens. This technique is used principally for Ascaris lambicoides, Trichoris, and hookworms. Estimation of burdens is useful in determining the intensity of infection, deciding chemotherapy, and testing the efficacy of the drugs. Sometimes testing for reducing substances in stool is associated with disaccharide deficiency and malabsorption. Clinical test, tablet test depends on Benedict copper sulfate reduction reactions. In this test, which is very useful, provides information about carbohydrate metabolism. To use this test, we need stool specimen, which should be fresh specimen. So that's all for this chapter. Thank you.